Continuing in our development of this website, we're going to now set up the right-hand column, and that will become a part of our template. So here's our text editor again, and we have our beginning HTML and beginning.css from the layout right folder. We'll go ahead and do our save as ritual. We'll save this as template.html. And the CSS will become main.css. And we'll go ahead and put in the right column in the XHTML. This is really easy. So it gets its own div inside of the content and outside of the main content. So I call this Sidebar. You'll notice that I capitalize the second words in my selectors. This type of capitalization is called camel case, where the first letter is lowercase and then each succeeding word has a capital letter. The reason I do this is because in CSS, selectors can have letters and numbers and underscores, but they cannot have dashes or spaces or anything like that. And I personally dislike underscores. A lot of people like them. They think they look like spaces that are just underlined. I just don't like them. And so I use camel case instead, and this allows me to have multi-word identifiers and have a clear distinction between the words. And so this is my personal style. Different people do this in different ways. So inside of the sidebar here, we have a H3. H3 is used for the headings in our sidebars. And H3 is not used in the main content, and this allows us to keep that distinct. And it also allows the search engines to prioritize the blocks of text in the document, giving the sidebar lower priority and the main content higher priority. And that's a placeholder for our content in the sidebar, and I'm going to go ahead and indent that a little bit. And that is what goes in the template.html file. Now in the main.css, we'll scroll down here towards the bottom, and right in here we will set up for our sidebar. And we'll go ahead and put some styles in here. The sidebar div will have the float right and width of 265 pixels. Padding, it's that same trick with the padding. 10 pixels on the right and left, 0 on the top and bottom, margin 0, and border left, solid, gray, and 1 pixel. So what this does, there's a couple of things in here we want to talk about. First of all, I'm floating right and not floating left. We know that we can float left, and it'll show up right next door to the other one. But by floating right, I ensure that the right margin is lined up with the right side of the containing block. The width is 265. That was calculated before. With padding and margin we understand. And this border left, this is lovely. Let me show you this in the browser. You'll notice that this vertical line extends down to the bottom of the sidebar and no further. And that's because that border is attached to the sidebar and not attached to the main content. If I made it a right border on the main content, it would go all the way to the bottom of the page. And so I wanted it to come just to the bottom of the sidebar. And I think that looks good. And so that's why that border left is on the sidebar. Go ahead and set up our paragraphs and headings. So this selects our paragraphs in the sidebar only. And we can have the font family. We use the Trebuchet Sans Serif for the sidebar main body text. Font size is 0.8 em. The line height is 1.2 em. And the color is just a little bit off-white. Margin 003x, and 0. And so what this does is the margin, we have the top is 0, the right is 0, the bottom is 3 X's, so that puts some space between the paragraphs, and the left is 0. And so that left again will line up nicely with the padding on the sidebar div. Now sidebar H3, so this is our heading level that we use for the sidebar mostly. This is going to have this same font family, so I'm going to go ahead and just copy all of this, pressing Control C. You'll press Command C on a Macintosh, and there we have that. Now I'll just go and modify things instead. So it's 1M for the heading, and the line height, we don't have that. The color is this 1B 9D 95, and the margin is 1x on the top, 0 on the right, half an x on the bottom, and 0 on the left. And that'll make it nice and tight against the paragraph, but give some space before the heading. So we'll go ahead and save that and load it up in the browser and take a look. So we'll drag template.html from our layout right folder into the browser, and there we have our sidebar. Now the rule is going all the way to the bottom because we don't have much difference in the height between the sidebar content and the main content. But when we do, that rule will not go all the way to the bottom. So that's set up, and in our next lesson we will do the footer with the copyright information, and our template will be complete.